e brasileiras. Conforme eu vos tinha dito aqui há uns tempos, eu vou começar a fazer versões em inglês dos meus vídeos. A primeira acabou de sair, inclusivamente já poderão ter visto. Esta é a vossa. Como vocês já são meninas mais experimentadas e eu penso que o vídeo está bastante claro, as explicações estão em inglês, mas eu vou tirar para vocês, vou tirar o som em inglês e vou deixar só uma música de fundo, porque eu acho que se vê claramente aquilo que eu estou a fazer. Eu escuso de estar a gravar tudo outra vez, eu peço desculpa. Se tiverem alguma dúvida, digam e eu repito poderei repetir este processo depois no próximo vídeo, não tenham problemas. Pronto, eu espero que gostem, é um mini quilt, espero que gostem. Eu neste tempo de férias tenho feito assim umas férias intermitentes e tenho tido alguns problemas a resolver e outros compromissos, não tenho sido muito assídua, mas prometo que serei a partir da rentrée, a partir de setembro, outubro. Prometo que serei mais assídua e mais regular, tá bem? Eu sei que já fiz esta promessa muitas vezes e nem sempre cumpro, mas penso que terei reunidas as condições para que isso aconteça num futuro próximo. E pronto, muito obrigada pelas mensagens sempre simpáticas que eu continuo a receber. Elas são um grande incentivo para eu continuar a partilhar convosco as coisas simples que faço. Espero que estejam a ter umas boas férias, se for caso disso, e tudo bom para vocês. Um beijinho e até à próxima. O som hoje é capaz de não estar muito bom porque eu tenho tido alguns problemas com o meu microfone de lapela, que estaria a fazer umas asneiradas. Espero corrigir isso em breve. Beijinhos a todas e boas férias. Fiquem bem.
I went ahead and I drew this composition. As you can see, I used the leaves I had there, the bird and the snail and the berries, so on and so forth. The interfacing has a shiny side, which is the fusible one, the one that has to go against the fabric, and you press with the iron. These pieces are directional. If I want the bird pointing in this direction, I will have to make a reverse, an inverted image. So this is the way I should trace the shape to the interfacing. Let's start with the beak. Now, the next piece, which is going to be the body of the bird, has to have an extra margin here that will go under the beak. Here, an extra margin that will go under the wing. And then we cut out all the pieces. Sometimes if the design is very intricate, if I have lots and lots of small pieces and similar pieces, what I do is to number them on the drawing, and number each little piece accordingly, so that I can make the puzzle in the end. I have all the pieces for the bird cut out, and I'm going to do the same with all the shapes in the design. Okay, I have the pieces for my bird here, for the snail, the berries, the leaves. I've numbered the leaves so that I can easily put them on the design later on. And I've been through my scrap beans and I've chosen already some colors. Now the next step is to fuse the interfacing to the pieces of fabric. The leaves, I placed them randomly on the fabrics. I have number 1 and 4 and 5, 2, and then 8 and 3, 9, 7, randomly disposed on the fabrics, so that they are there is a good mix on the whole background. And you have to take care to leave a space, because you're going to need a margin around the pieces. So now I'm going to fuse the interfacing to the pieces of fabric, and then we are going to cut around, leaving that margin I told you about. So now we're going to cut around the pieces, leaving the margin I told you about. Here, since we had already left a margin in when we were drawing the piece, we don't need to leave it. I haven't drawn the snail yet. I still have to think about the colors. It's always the most time-consuming part of the process. It's choosing the colors. It takes me hours. Well, not this time. This time I made a quick choice. Here, where the shape curves inwards, you have to make these small cuts. Okay, I've prepared all the pieces except for the snail, because I want to have a picture of the whole thing before I choose the colors for the snail, because I have some questions about it. And now the next step will be to turn this margin inwards and apply a little bit of glue so that they stay in place. For this, I usually I have this set of tools that should work together. This one, that looks like a fork, is meant to press the piece down so that it doesn't escape. And this one, look, it has this shape, is used to turn the margins inward. Okay, but what I tend to do is using this one and press with my finger. I find it quicker. I don't know. That's what happens with me. Now you straighten up the edges like this while the glue is still soft. Okay, and you keep doing this until you have all the pieces ready. Now for the round shapes, I'll use this tip of the tool, and I should use this tip of the tool on the left hand, but once again I prefer using my fingers on the left hand. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue. Okay. Oh, this is very sticky, and we press the margin inside, and we press with the tip of the tool. I hope you can see my fingers are not on the way. Now you go ahead with this tip and correct any irregularities that may have happened here. And also, this is not rocket science. You should not overthink it. You should play around and have fun, and things don't need to be perfect. So we have a round shape. And 4 more to go. I've got this old wooden box. I have a flashlight and I have a piece of glass, and I'm going to put the fabric over the light, and beneath the fabric I have the drawing in the correct position. So I pinned the paper to the fabric so that it won't move, and I'm going to start transferring the drawing to the background fabric. These are friction pens. They are heat erasable. You have to move the fabric around to catch the light. These pens have known better days. Let's try another one. Okay, this one seems to be better. So there you are. The lines are not very clear, very dark, but we only need a rough guide to place the shapes, and that's what we are going to do next. And we're going to start with the branch, so that then we can apply all the leaves in the right places. we are going to pin this strip down to the fabric, to the background fabric. I must tell you that this is not strictly speaking on the bias, but this fabric has a little give, and so there will be no problem. But it should have been cut on a 45-degree angle, and it wasn't. It was something smaller. Okay, the strip should be a little longer because the leaf starts there, but I'll put the leaf a little back so that the raw edge stays beneath the leaf. And now we're going to sew. The way I'm going to sew this is by making a running stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the fabric, and I'm pushing the needle with this part of my finger. So I made this contraption with a bottle of a plastic, with the neck of a plastic bottle, to push the needle and protect my finger as I do it. So we go all the way. My needle just became unthreaded. So let's proceed. I don't know if you can see the small stitches. There you go. Finished. Now we're going to take some kind of tool, some kind of thing to flip this over and press down so that it stays in that position. This is a technique I learned with Yoko Saito, the Japanese quilter. She's just amazing. Okay, I'm not getting a perfect press, but that will do. I could press it with the iron, but there's no need. And now we're going to tuck it in and sew. I'm leaving the raw edge because I'm going to add a border here, and the raw edge will be inside the seam, so you won't be seeing it. Okay, now we start sewing. Okay, so this is done. This is how it looks on the back. Just gonna and now the next step will be to place the pieces . I've sewn all the pieces to the background fabric. I have embroidered a thin stem here and these little horns, or what you call them, on the snail. And when I get to the quilting part, to the quilting phase of the project, I'll do the swirl on the snail shell. Now, you can make a whole lot of things with a piece like this. You can add something around and make a bag, or make a small quilt like we are going to do. I'm going to add a border on the bottom and a border on top, and then make a mini quilt, maybe to hang on a wall or something. You could make some more applique blocks and alternate them with pieced blocks. This one is smaller, obviously, but you could do bigger ones, and make a big quilt like this, So there are lots of things you can do, starting from something like this. You can use it as the centerpiece of a medallion quilt. Well, it's up to your creativity and imagination. This measures 12 inches across, so I divided it by 4, so I will have to make 4 quarter square triangles for the border, and that's what I'm going to do now. We are going to need 8 of these units, 4 for the top, 4 for the bottom, to make the borders. And to get a 3.5 inch square like this, you're going to need 2 squares, 2 4.5 inch squares. The way we do this is we put the 2 pieces of fabric right sides together. I generally press them together because that prevents the fabrics from shifting. So that's what I'm going to do. So I press them together, and I'm going to cut a 4.5 inch square out of these 2 fabrics. Now you're going to draw a line on the diagonal, and we're gonna sew a seam 1/4 inch each side of this line. You're now going to split this in 2, and I usually press the seams to one side, but in this case I'm going to press them open so that so as to avoid bulk. Okay, I pressed the seams open, and now I'm going to split this in half by the diagonal. Don't mind the dog ears here, because this is going to be trimmed. I always make them a little bigger than I need, so that I can trim them off, and otherwise it might be too short, and I prefer that to have an extra bit of fabric to trim off. Okay, now that I have all these triangles, I'm going to sew them in pairs randomly, so as to have a bigger variety. And okay, that's what I'm going to do next. Let's start chain sewing. Okay, I'm going to press these seams open and then trim them down to the correct size. Okay, let's do some trimming. Let's trim this down to 3.5 inches. So we have to align this diagonal line here with a diagonal, with one of the diagonals on the square. And make sure that every corner of the 3.5 inch mark is in the right place. Sometimes things shift when you're sewing. And now I'm going to choose 4 squares for each row. Let's see, maybe like this. What do you think? Okay, now for the top row. This. The row seems much bigger than this piece, but you need to remember that we're going to sew these together and that we're going to lose a 1/4 inch in each square, so it will be all right. Okay. Let's sew the rows together. You may notice that the border is a little bit longer than this, and I didn't even square this up yet. So what I'm going to do is, because I have 2 extra pieces of these, I'm going to add 1 each side of each border, and I'm going to add a stripe here. Okay, so I think it will work. This is the way I do things. I navigate by sight. I don't like to do a lot of maths. I just go and I decide, I take these decisions as I go. I think it's gonna work. So I'm going to square this up. I'm going to add this extra unit to the border. I'm going to square this up, add these margins, add this kind of frame, and then put everything together. This is how it's going to look. I cut 2 stripes, 1 for each side. I cut them a little wider than they should be because I like to play on the safe side. And so first we sew these together and then we sew the borders, the bottom and top borders. You'll notice that I cut off a little bit of the fabric, this fabric here at the bottom, because as I told you before, I want this to be hidden on the in the seam allowance. I'm gonna pin this, the border, making sure that I catch that the end of the twig of the branch, and then I'm going to sew it, the bottom border and the upper border, and it will be ready for quilting. So here we are. The wall hanging is ready to be quilted, which I will do on my next video. I'll quilt it and bind it. So please leave a like, share, subscribe, hit the notifications bell so that you can be notified every time I post a video. And I'll be expecting your comments. They will be very important for me. And we'll see you maybe in a week or so. Until then, stay safe. Até à próxima!